but email campaigns and blog posts, if you did a blog post every 2 hours, it's going to be overdoing it. So what's important is you got to understand how these different tools, how people are consuming content based on those tools, and that's going to drive some of your content strategy. And then finally, jump in and have someone focus 5 hours a week on this to start. And if there's certainly it's certainly manageable. At least some of this is on 5 hours a week. So poll 2. What I'm going to do here is let me just pull up my Okay, so the next poll I wanted to do, and this is actually more just an interest poll, is, here, I'll just pull it up here. So the poll is, what we're finding is some of the challenges that existed a year ago are changing a little bit for retailers, and I want to obviously share this with everyone. And it's basically, what is your biggest recruitment challenge today? And there's 5 different options. There's candidate sourcing, all regions. There's also sourcing in just remote communities. Is turnover your biggest challenge? Inconsistent recruitment process? Or is your biggest problem that you don't have any metrics within your business to really understand what to do next? So this is a good, and I'm sure everyone will be interested to see what the answers are here. So I'm just going to launch this out, and if everyone could take a second to give us their answer, that would be great. Okay. We've got almost half in, so if everyone could just fill that in, that'd be great. We almost got everybody now. Okay, so we've almost got everybody in. Really interested. If this was a live call, I'd be curious to see what people thought the answers would be, and this is actually really surprising. And what's also key to remember is we've got a good representation on this call. So we've got people from operations, we've got people from HR, we've got some people in senior store level roles. 23% of you said that your biggest challenge is sourcing in all regions. Now again, you've got to pick the biggest challenge of these 5. You may have one that's outside of this, but for the sake of this poll, approximately 25% of you said sourcing in all regions is the biggest issue. The number 1 challenge for everyone on this call was 31% of you said you had issues with sourcing in remote communities, which is a non-surprise. So what's great about that is I think that some of the examples from the sourcing piece today should help solve some of those issues, or at least start to help solve. And then it was pretty much a split for the last group here. 15%, 15%, and 15% of you said turnover, inconsistent recruitment process, and no metrics. So, but by far and away, sourcing being the biggest issue. And what's really interesting is, if we were to run this poll a year ago, there's no way that sourcing would be this much of an issue. So the reason why I was curious is we're seeing a bit of a trend that people are starting to get a little bit worried again, and they're starting to see the impact of the economy starting to improve slightly. So I'm just going to close that down. Thank you very much for your responses there. So again, just to repeat, 23% sourcing all regions, 30% sourcing remote communities, 15% of you said turnover, 15% inconsistent recruitment process, and about 15% no metrics. Okay, so I believe I'm really tight on time here now. So conclusion here is if there are some key things to take away is go work with your IT team to ensure your open jobs are being pushed automatically to the search engines and aggregators, and there's some ways to go do that. Indeed and Simply Hired and Wow Jobs and so forth. So that's a key one. If you don't have any recruitment technology in place, that's probably the first step. But if you do, then you can submit the jobs. Start with some really basic social media marketing practices to get your feet wet. So posting your jobs on Twitter, and people will follow you, believe it or not. Like, people are actually interested in hearing about your jobs, even if it is 3-4 times a day. And then finally, either upgrade or implement an ATS that can electronically pre-screen and qualify applicants for you. The number of full-time bodies and time you will save store managers will be substantial if your technology can be architected to do this effectively. And there really isn't anyone on the market who doesn't have a good system to be able to do this for you. So what I'll do is I'll pass it back to Jerry here, and he'll lead us through the Q&A and some final comments.
Thank you very much, Cameron. I haven't actually experienced you kick it into that highest gear that you have there for a little while. I love watching Cameron and seeing him get really excited about some of this stuff because he truly is passionate about what we do here. Before we get into Q&A, I just want to tell you about some of our upcoming webinars that we have. July is a big month for us. We've got another one coming next week. It's called the Business Case for RPO for the Retail Industry, and it's a 30-minute power session. In August, we've got a session around restaurant recruitment, and that's going to be presented in partnership with Check.com. In September, sourcing and pipelining candidates for peak sessions. We've got the 2 sessions in September and October we're doing in partnership with the Retail Council of Canada. So we've got the sourcing and pipelining session and how to operationalize your social media recruitment efforts. So really planning out our webinar schedule for the future. You'll see those, you'll be able to register for those webinars starting next week, I believe. So we'll post, it'll be next week. Sorry, I'm getting conflicting answers here. But next week, if you go to mindfieldgroup.com webinars, you'll not only be able to see this webinar in a recorded format, but you'll also be able to register for the upcoming webinars. So I'm going to jump into Q&A here, and we had quite a few questions coming through while we were on the call. Let's start with. Let's see. Finally, I got to get a good one that's going to stump Cameron here, maybe. But how about? Here's a question, Cameron. Senior managers in my company some senior managers are skeptical about social media sourcing and things. It's hard to convince them sometimes. This is what this person is saying, is there any data out there that supports the use of social media for sourcing and recruitment?
That's a great question. It depends on what kind of data you're looking for. If you're trying to, there's certainly, the fact that Facebook now has 500 million users is certainly a good chunk of data to share with somebody around, the value of that database and to market to it. But I guess the core of it is it's tough for you to get your own data internally until you're able to go use it. So my suggestion would be on how to help sell these guys is to go look at the best practices. I think if you give examples of some of the other major retailers that are using this and how they're using it, and that it's safe to use. So I'd give examples of competitors who are currently using this stuff, and set some targets on what you think this is going to do. So hey, we think this is going to increase our traffic flow by 10%. And quite frankly, it's important for your brand, because if your competitors are doing this and you aren't, then you look like a dinosaur in comparison to them. So I hope that kind of answered your question.
Thank you, Cameron. Got another question here. On one of the slides, you popped up some of the sort of key ATS vendors. And so the question from this participant is, do ATS providers, do they allow easy integration with all the sort of new sourcing techniques that you were speaking about? Or I guess what the big question is, are they going to need to replace their ATS to do all this cool stuff that you're talking about?
The majority of things that have to be done in the strategies that I've got here actually are predominantly outside of your system. So a lot of this is actually system setup and feeding things through. Sorry, I just had a question that pop up, but basically what I'm seeing is there's some ATS providers, some recruitment technology providers that are starting to go and offer a sourcing tool and an ATS tool. So I don't think you need to replace your ATS if you have one in place, because your ATS should be geared so you can accomplish almost everything that we talked about here. The long and short of it is I don't think you need to replace your ATS. I think you need to get more miles out of your current ATS. And there will be some unique sourcing stuff that gets built over time. I know there's some great new career site module tools that are being built out. So you may want to go bolt something onto your ATS unless your ATS has great career site platform.
Okay. Thanks again. Now, another question here, Cameron. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more. So one of the questions is, I'm actually combining a couple of questions here, but what one of the participants wants to know what apparel retailers we've supported, and I would suspect, you know, what how do these strategies work in the apparel industry?
Thanks. Yeah. So we typically we try to share all of our clients. So I can't really say who our apparel retailer clients are. I can say that we've learned a lot in that space over the last kind of 18 months. What we find is that apparel retailers, and certainly if it's more of a fashion-forward retailer, these social tools are extremely positive as far as how to go use them. So in regards to the specific question, which apparel retailers we've worked with, certainly we're happy to have that conversation offline with you for the person who asked that question. But ultimately, apparel retailing is kind of a beast to its own. It's a little bit different than any other retailer. Like every other retailer is different. But we find that a lot of these strategies, in particular the social media stuff, works very well in the fashion apparel space.
Okay, Cameron, thanks for that, and sorry to put you on the spot there. One final question, and then we're going to wrap things up here. And I think this is a great question because, you know, we've talked about a lot of great new strategies, some quite cutting-edge strategies, and one of our participants is asking about traditional channels, like, you know, dealing with walk-ins and, you know, some of the more traditional recruiting techniques. And I'm suspecting the question is, do we still do those kinds of things? So can you speak to that, Cameron?
Yeah, good question. So as much as it makes me cringe, I do know that some newspaper advertising in small communities still work, right? So yes, we're, you know, and yes, we do deploy those strategies when need be. So I think that the walk-in stuff and the newspaper advertising, some of the traditional stuff, can actually be integrated right in. So there's no reason why a walk-in can't get a recruitment card that encourages them to join your Facebook fan page, for example. That's another way to capture their information, or to follow you on Twitter, or to even go to your career website and sign up for your talent network, or to apply online. My view on it is this, is if these things are fairly cost-effective, then really, to me, is why wouldn't you go augment that flow? Like, just good enough, to me, is not a good strategy. You need to be driving to get things better at all times, and you need to be pushing from an innovation perspective, because before you know it, everyone on this call is going to, and everybody is thinking about this, is at some point in the very near future, we're going to be back in a candidate market that we were about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. And this is where anyone that could fog a glass window was getting a smock or a jersey to go to start the next day, and that is a bad plan. So my view on it is, the stuff's working now, great, you need to augment it. And if I told you we could, you know, if you could go double your leads tomorrow and double the number of applicants that are coming in, my question is, why wouldn't you, right? So if it works now, great. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But certainly, adding some extra components to it to augment it is never a bad strategy. So I'll pass it back to Jerry.
Okay, I think that's a great note to end on. And please, thank you very much for being on the call today, for being on our webinar. And if you want to reach out to us and find out more, this is the kind of stuff that we do here every day. It's this exciting here every day. You don't want to know what we put in our coffee to keep us at this energy level. But I want to thank you again. Remember that we've got another webinar next week, and then August, September, and October will be the registration for those webinars will be up as of next week. So thanks again from Vancouver. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.